For our session today, we will have listing outcomes, and this will be our objective for this session, to list the outcomes of an event. Now, let's have the following terms first. Let's define some terms. So we have outcome, a possible result; a sample space, the set of possible outcomes for an experiment; an event is a specific outcome or a type of outcome and is a subset of the sample space. We will go through all of these as we go on with our lesson for this session, okay? Now let's begin with this one. How do you write a sample space? Use the capital S as the symbol for a sample space. Make use of braces, that's the curly brackets, when writing the outcomes, because a sample space is a set. And when you write a set, you make use of braces. And lastly, for example, vowels of the English alphabet. What are the vowels of the English alphabet? Okay, that's A, E, I, O, U. So we have the sample space, the capital letter S, is equal to A, E, I, O, U. And take note, enclosed inside the braces. Okay? Now let's continue. Listing outcomes. Example number 1. So, rolling a die is what you call a probability experiment. It's an experiment, okay? Now, a die or a dice, okay? Take note of that. Dice is also plural, at the same time it is also singular. Die is the singular form, or I can also have dice for that. Now, what are the outcomes when you roll a dice? Or what are the possible outcomes? What are the possible outcomes? Okay, but the faces of the dice, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those are the outcomes when you roll a dice. Now, what is the sample space? It's so simple. You simply write the letter S, then equal to braces, then you write the numbers 1 to 6. And that will be the sample space when you roll a die. Is the sample space clear? Okay, and how many possible outcomes are there? There are 6. So in writing that, I'll be having the number of outcomes is equal to 6. And here, by the way, the letter N here means the number of outcomes. Okay? Let me change the color of my pen first. Okay. So take note, the letter N here is simply, or denotes the number of outcomes. That will be 6. Okay? Now let's have another example. Example number 2. Getting an even number. So take note, still it's rolling a die. The outcomes are these. These are the possible outcomes. But take note, you are given a specific event. This is now an event. Getting an even number. So my question is this. What is the sample space of the event getting an even number? Okay, S is equal. I'm going to be using the letter E now because I am given a specific event. Okay? So take note, this is now the sample space for a specific event. That is 2, 4, 6. Even numbers naman na siya. And how many outcomes are there? There are 3 possible outcomes when you get an even number when rolling a die. Okay? Now, let's have another one. Third example. Yes. specific event. I'm gonna be using the letter E here when I'm gonna have a specific event. Okay, let's have example. Don't worry, I'm gonna be using the letter E with my examples later. Okay? So, example number 3. Colored spinners. What is the sample space? Okay, the colors there, those are your outcomes. So the outcomes are yellow, blue, red, and green. So what I'm gonna do here is simply write all the colors inside the braces. And how many possible outcomes do we have? There are 4 possible outcomes. So that's how you get the sample space and the number of possible outcomes for spinners. Colored spinners, to be specific. Okay? Now let's have example number 4. Flipping a coin or tossing a coin. What are the outcomes when you toss or flip a coin? Diba you are you're given pwede siya this one or pwede po siya this one. And I heard one of your classmates said heads and tails. So when you flip a coin, there are 2 possible outcomes. The heads and the tails. So take note of that because we will be using that later on as we go on with our discussion. Okay? Next. Now, let's have this example. A child's game has 3 picture cards. If you choose a card, replace it, meaning return it, how many different combinations can you get? So take note, we have the cat card, we have the dog card, and we have the mouse card. So we have here 3 picture cards. We have the cat card, the dog card, and the mouse card. So here's a couple to start with. So pwede ni siyang results ato ang makuha. The first one, I'm gonna be getting a dog. I'm gonna return the dog card. I'm gonna be getting the dog again in my second card. So that's one possible combination. Another possible combination is, first I'm going to be getting a dog card. Then I'm going to return the dog card. The second card is simply a cat card. So those are simply the possible outcomes. So I'm going to have a DD, which is dog, dog. I'm going to have DC, which is dog, cat. Do you get what I'm trying to say here about listing outcomes, having this example, Section Ruby? Who can give me other possible outcomes here aside from dog, dog, and dog, cat? Okay, cat, mouse is possible. What else? Dog, mouse is also possible. So how do we write all the possible outcomes systematically? So take note, there are 9 possible outcomes. And what are these 9 possible outcomes? I'm going to begin with a dog and a dog. sorry for that. I'm going to begin with a dog and a dog cat, a dog mouse, a cat dog, a cat cat, a cat mouse, a mouse dog, a mouse cat, and a mouse mouse. Those are the 9 different outcomes of the 2 cards. Okay? Now, and these are simply making use of 2 letters. We have the dog, dog over here, the DD. We have the DC for this, the dog, cat. And we have the dog, mouse for our third outcome. Same thing with the rest of these. Okay, you can clearly see this over here. This one, cannot see. Sir, how do you make use or how do you how were you able to arrive with the following outcomes? Okay, let's make use of a sample space diagram for that. Because using this, you can clearly see and you can systematically list all the possible outcomes. So over here, I'm going to be writing the possible choices. What are my choices, by the way, for the cards? Dog, cat, and mouse. So I'll be having a dog, cat, and mouse. And on the bottom part, I'm going to also have a dog, a cat, and a mouse. Now, I'm going to start over here. So I'm going to begin here, followed by this. So if I'm going to have a dog, it's paired with a mouse. So I'm going to have a dog mouse there. What about this box over here, section Ruby? What are you going to write here? Okay, that's a dog and a cat. So DC. What about this one over here? That's a dog and a dog. That's correct. What about this one? Cat, mouse. Correct. What about this one over here? Cat and a cat. What about this one? Cat, dog. What about here? A mouse and a mouse. And then here. Mouse and a cat. What about here? Mouse and a dog. So that's a very systematic way of listing the outcomes by making use of a sample space diagram. Okay? Are there any questions so far? Is everything clear, section Ruby? Now, how many outcomes are there? How many outcomes are there? There are 9 possible outcomes. Okay? Now, let's continue. Now, you can use the sample space diagram to find a specific event. Like, for example, what are the outcomes of getting matching cards? Meaning, parehas ang cards. What are those outcomes? What are those outcomes? A dog, dog, a cat, cat, and a mouse, mouse. Meaning, parehas ang first card and second card. So, I'm gonna be writing there a specific event. Take note, I'm not using the letter S now. I'm using the letter E because we are given simply getting matching cards. That's a DD, a CC, and an MM. And how many outcomes are there? There are... Sorry for that. What about this one? There are... I'm gonna be having N. That's E. That's 3. And for our next example, what are the outcomes of getting a dog card? So you have noticed here na the encircled outcomes dapat na dog. There's a dog there, a dog, a dog, a dog, and a dog. So there are 5 possible outcomes, and the outcomes are DD, DC, DM, CD, and MD. And take note how many outcomes are there. There are 5 possible outcomes. Is there any question about this? Are there questions about this? Okay, so everything is clear, okay? Now, this time, let's have rolling 2 dice. So take note, this is dice number 1. These are the outcomes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is dice number 2. The outcomes are still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what are you going to write over here? 1, over here. 1, 1. That's correct. What about over here? 1, 2. Correct. What about over here? 1, 3. so on and so forth. 1, 4, 1, 5, and 1, 6. What about in this box over here? 2, 1. What about above it? 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5, and 2, 6. What about here? 3, 1. And then followed by 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 3, 5, so on and so forth. So those are the possible outcomes when you roll 2 dice. So take note of that. These are our outcomes. And how many outcomes are there? 36. So take note of that. I'm going to be having n of s because we are having the total number of outcomes. That is 36. If you will count this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until here, that's 36 outcomes in all. Okay? So take note of this. When you roll 2 dice, there are 36 possible outcomes. Now, what if I'm going to have dice again, but this time, I'm going to have this question. What are the outcomes of getting a sum of 8? Who can give me 2 numbers there whose sum is 8? 4, 4. Let me encircle that. What else? 5, 3. What else? 3, 5. Okay, what else? 2, 6. What else? 6, 2. Are there any other numbers there when added it's 8? Wala na. So what are the outcomes of getting a sum of 8? We have 2, 6, 3, 5, 4, 4, 5, 3, and 6, 2. Sir, how do you write that as as a sample space, or probably a list of outcomes? That is using the letter E over here. That will give us braces, parenthesis, 2, 6, parenthesis, 3, 5, parenthesis, 4, 4. We have 5, 3. And lastly, we have 6, 2. And then the braces again. And how many outcomes are there? How many outcomes are there? There are 5. Okay, there you go. So that's our example about dice. Let's have another one. What if you're given like this question over here? What are the outcomes of getting exactly 1 odd number? 1 and 2. Okay, let me encircle that. Exactly 1 odd number. Okay, isa ka odd number. Correct. What else? 3 and 2. Asa man ang 3 and 2? Let's have this column first. Let's start with this column first. Identify the outcomes that contains exactly 1 odd number. Exactly 1 and 6. What else? 1 and 4. Okay. Let's have the second column. Exactly 1 odd number. 2 and 1. 2 and 3. 2 and 5. What about the third column? 3 and... I cannot have 3 and 1. Okay, 3, 2. What else? 3, 4. 3, 6. What about the fourth column? 4, 1. 4, 3. 4, 5. What about the fifth column? 5, 2. 5, 4. 5, 6. What about the sixth column? 6, 1. 6, 3. 6, 5. So writing this as a sample space, I'm going to be having the letter E is equal to, we have 1, 2. We have 1, 4. We have 1, 6. We have 2, 1. We have 2, 3. We have 2, 5. Then we have 3, 2. We have 3, 4. We have 3, 6. We have 4, 1. 4, 3. 4, 5. 5, 2. 5, 4. 5, 6. And lastly, we have the last three outcomes. 6, 1. 6, 3. And 6, 5. And how many outcomes are there? There are 18 possible outcomes. So the number of outcomes for this event is 18. Okay? Now let's have another question here. What if I'm going to be asking you, what are the outcomes of getting an even number? 1, 1. Even? 1, 1? 1, 2. Okay. 1, 4. Then what else? 1, 6. What about in the second column? 2, 1. 2, 2. All of them, because now may even number. The question here is simply getting 1 or 2 even numbers. Pwede isa ka even number, pwede pa duha. At as long as there is an even number there, that is a possible outcome. Okay? For our third column, there's an even number there. Our fourth column, all of them, because all of them contains an even number. In our fifth column, we only have this, 5, 4, 5, 6. In our last column, all of them. So how many outcomes are there? There are 27 outcomes. So take note. You will be listing that. Of course, braces that. Do not forget that. There are 27 outcomes for this event. Are there any questions when it comes to our dice section, Ruby? Okay, let's continue now. Now, what about tree diagrams? So another way of listing outcomes is making use of a tree diagram. So a way of showing the possibilities of 2 or more events. Simple diagrams we use to calculate probabilities of 2 or more events. Okay? Now, let's have this example. Tossing 2 coins. So take note, we are tossing 2 coins. So in our tree diagram, we will have the first coin, and these are the outcomes. In our first coin, what are the outcomes when you toss a coin? Heads and tails. I'll be using the letter H for heads, the letter T for tails. Now, this is for our first coin. Now, let's go to our second coin now. So, our second coin, ako nang parisan ang first coin ako nga outcomes og duha. So, duha sa heads, duha pod sa tails. Kay pwede man ang ato ang first head nga outcome, parisan nag-head og tails. Ang atong second, ang first pod nga tail, kani siya, parisan pod na nato og heads and tails. You get the idea, section Ruby? Okay. Now, what is our first outcome? The first outcome is heads and heads. The second outcome is what? Heads and tails. Okay, the third outcome, tails and heads. The fourth outcome, tails and tails. And these are the possible outcomes. And how many outcomes do we have? Okay, there are 4 possible outcomes. Okay, now let's go to tossing 3 coins. So therefore, I'm gonna begin with the first coin. What are the outcomes when you toss a coin again? Heads and tails. So in our second coin, parisa na ako. parisan po na nako siya. So I'll be writing heads and tails there. Heads and tails there. Now, I will not end there because we have the third coin. So this time, kanang mga outcomes na to sa second coin, ato ng parisan ug tagduha-duha again. So for the first one, head and tail. For the second one, head and tail. Head and tail, head and tail. You get the idea now of the tree diagram? Okay, what's the first outcome? Head, head, and head. So follow lang the line. Heads, heads, heads. The second outcome. Heads, heads, tails. What about the third outcome? Head, tails, and heads. Okay, what about the fourth outcome? Heads, tails, tails. What about our next outcome? Okay, the sixth outcome. Correct. Tails, head, tails. What about the seventh outcome? Tails, tails, head. This is the outcome over here. Follow lang na siya. What about the last outcome? Okay, these are the outcomes. And how many outcomes are there? You count. How many outcomes are there? There are 8 possible outcomes. Okay? Are there any question about tossing 3 coins? Okay, there's no question at all. Now, let me present to you a very concrete example of using the tree diagram. You have noticed here that if you choose one burger, one side serve, and one drinks, how many combinations are possible? So take note, in our burger, we have beef patty, a chicken, and a fish patty nga atong pwedeng ipalaman. Ang side serves nato, pwede ta mag-fries, pwede ta mag-salad. Ang drinks nato, we only have two choices lang. We can have a cola or a juice. Okay? Now, to start with, we are gonna begin with the burger. The burger that has a beef patty, a chicken patty, and a fish patty. Next, we have now kining beef nato akong parisan og fries og salad. The same with our chicken, fries and salad. The same with the fish, fries and salad. And then kining ato ang side serves atong parisan og drinks. So we have ang kining fries kay cola og juice, cola og juice, cola and juice, cola and juice. The same thing with the other side serves. So what is the first possible combination nga pwedeng ma-order? Okay. Beef, fries, and cola. What about another combination? Second combination. Beef, fries, ug juice ata. Wa pa man ta sa juice. So, pwede beef, fries, ug juice. What if I'm gonna have beef, salad, and cola? Pwede po beef, salad, and juice. The same thing with the other combinations. Though this is one important application of a tree diagram to get the possible mga menu na to, mga combo meals in probably in a restaurant, in a sari-sari, in a karinderya. So these are just, and how many possible outcomes are there? There are 12. So if I'm gonna count the last one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it will give me the 12 possible outcomes. Okay? Now, here is another application. What if I'm gonna have a hot dog, a burger, and a pizza for my pilianan sa ako ang carbo or akong how do you call this, by the way, sa akong snacks? And then I'm gonna have, for the drinks, I'm gonna have milk, water, and soda. For the dessert, I'm gonna have ice cream or cake. And these are the possible outcomes. How many possible outcomes do we have here? There are, let's count off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, sorry for that. There are 18 possible outcomes. That's correct. Okay? Now, are there any questions when it comes to the tree diagram? Okay, this time, let's have the classic deck of playing cards. Now, how many cards are there in a deck of cards? Who's familiar here with playing cards? How many? 52. Okay, let me write that down. There are 52 playing cards. So take note of this. The total number of cards is 52. So I will have n of s is equal to 52. Aw ato ning i-dissect. Let's explore the different 52 cards. Okay, let's begin with the red cards. But there are two colors, Section Ruby. The two colors are, let's start with the red cards. What are the red cards? Hearts and, okay, we have the hearts and the diamonds. Okay, there you go. What about the other color? Black cards. And what are those black cards? Spades. And how do you call kamunggay? The spades is the paypay. What about the kamunggay? How do you call that? You call that clubs. Okay? So take note of that. We have here the red cards, the hearts, and the diamonds. The black cards, we have the spades and the clubs. Okay? Now, let's go further. How do you call these cards here? Unsa tawag aning first? Kini. Jack. Kini. Queen. Kini. And how do you call them? The face cards. So take note, we have the Jack, the Queen, and the King. Okay? You call them the face cards. So take note of the terms I'm using, okay? The face cards are the Jack, the Queen, and the King. Okay? What about this one? The number cards. What are the number cards? 1 to 10. Now my question is there a number 1 on the number 1 card? Oh, is okay. Naay number 1 ng ace? This is my question. Naay number 1 ang ace? Wala. So I will not consider the ace as number 1. The number card starts at number 2 to 10. So take note of that. Ang number cards nagbigin og 2 mo end sa number 10 because the ace cards is simply a separate one. The ace is the ace card. So take note of that. An ace card is not a number card. Is that clear, Section Ruby? So the ace card begins at number 2. It ends at number 10. Okay, let's have these. Let's summarize everything first about the playing cards. We have two colors, black and red. 4 suits, the spades, the clubs, the hearts, and the diamonds. Each suit is made up of 13 cards. So take note, there are 13 spades, 13 clubs, 13 hearts, and 13 diamonds. Is that clear, Section Ruby? Okay. An ace, number 2 to 10, the jack, and the king. Those are the 13 cards. If you're gonna count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These are the 13 cards. Okay? And then we have 2 to 10 are the number cards. Ace card. And we have the face cards. Jack, Queen, and King. Let's have our first question now. How many outcomes are there of getting a red face card? Okay, let me show you the cards now. Red face cards. How many? Why 6? Why 6? Asa man ang 6, ana? So you tell me daw, asa ang 6, ana? Okay. Okay. Kini siya. Kini. This one. And this one. How many na siya? There are. So I'm gonna be writing N of E is equal to 6. Simple as that. A red face card. Okay? What about here? A black number card. You have there the cards. Black number. How many? What are number cards? 2 to 10. From 2 to 10, how many cards are there from 2 to 10? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nya, duha man nakabuk. Pwede man clubs, pwede man spades. Okay, there are 18. So take note, from 2 to 10, there are 9 cards. Unya, duha ra man nakabuok. Pwede man ka mag-jack ana, mag-spades ana, ug mag-clubs ana. Mo nang 9 times 2 is 18. Okay? Let's continue. What about a number card less than 5? A number card less than 5. What are number cards less than 5? 2, 3, 4. How many are there? Why 12? Okay, it-times na kog 4. Kay naman ko'y upat ka buok cards sa 2. Upat ka buok cards sa 3. Upat ka buok cards sa 4. Mao nang 3 times 4 taana. And that will give you how many? There are 12, correct. Okay, let's have another question. A red number card more than 5. These are our... Okay, what are the number cards more than 5? How many cards are there from 6 to 10? 5. Pilay i-multiply na ako ani niya. But my question is, it stated red. Okay. So take note, if the color is indicated, multiply it by 2. If the color is not indicated, multiply it by 4. That's the simple way of getting the number of outcomes. Anang mga number cards, if given the colors, times 2. If the color is not indicated, times 4. So how many outcomes do we have? There are 10 possible outcomes.